What's going on, traders? Welcome back to the channel. What we have for you today is the stock SUNW. If you follow our morning live stream, you know we've been mentioning the stock for the past couple weeks, and now I've just gotten around to sitting down and making a video about it. So let's jump right into why I think you should be following SUNW stock on the long side. But before we get into all of that, let's just kind of recap and take an overview of the stock so we know exactly what it is we're looking at. So before we do all that, let me grab my drawing tools. Here we go. So real quickly, these two red lines here and these two red lines here are my first, so number 1 and number 2 target. All right. The reason there are two targets is because number 1 is always going to be the easiest, okay? And number 2 is going to be the one that's slightly more challenging to achieve, okay? So first target is generally the closest and easiest to get to, and then the second target is generally the one that's going to provide more profit, more money, but it's a little harder to get to. So we're going to give you the analysis on why we have picked number 1 and number 2 as our target selling zones for the dip buy in SUNW that started here, had a little flag pattern here, and then kind of had like a W flag pattern here, and why we think it can go all the way to the number 2 target. So as you can see, there is nothing on this chart, but as we bring up the next chart, you'll see exactly why we have our price targets where we have them. So the first one we'll do is the number 1 target. So how we had labeled this as number 1 and this as number 2. If you look at the screen on the left, you will see that we have this dotted white line right there. You see where the stock is currently stopping? It's stopping right on that dotted white line. So the past week, we had earlier traded it here, and now we've been long again in this dip with the first target being to here. We've achieved that price target today. So there might be a chance we see a little bit of selling pressure today, maybe tomorrow before this continues higher, because that's what happens when your stock or a stock reaches one of its price targets. It normally sees selling pressure just because that's just what happens. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the number 2 target, and we get the number 2 target by looking at this white trend line. So this white trend line is the price target that we would go for once we can successfully break out the level 1. Once the resistance in level 1 is broken, then we'll move up to level 2. If level 2 was broken, then we would rip even higher, but for the time being, we really shouldn't be projecting anything higher than about $14.60 or $15 on the stock SUNW. All right, so now you might be wondering, well, why do you have 2 lines? Well, watch what happens when we change the time frame from a 1-year day to a 180-day time frame. See, when we change it to a 180-day time frame, you're going to notice that we have this price point right there at $13.97. So that same white trend line that I told you to look at on the daily chart is the same white trend line that's right here on the 4-hour chart. And that gives us a price point of $13.97 as opposed to the other time frame that gives us a target of about $14.60. So what that does for us is it creates a long zone, being this is the top of the zone or beginning of the zone, and this is the top of the zone, okay? And we're looking to get the price anywhere to the starting point of that box to the high of that box, or the starting point of that zone to the high of the zone. So in this instance, with SUNW, you can see that we've gotten into this zone here. So for the most part, SUNW has already done a very successful trade from this low and or this kind of bottom and consolidation. It has done a fantastic bullish trade up into its price zone. And now we're just looking to kind of get it from here up and into the 14s to 15s overall. And I actually made a mistake here. There is no price zone for this target 1. I think it's just one price level if I'm correct. So there was actually a price zone. I just had it mapped off incorrectly from the other day. So the price zone for SUNW at target 1 was actually 1135 to 1175. And let me show you what happened over the course of the past couple days. You will see that when the price of SUNW reached the first red line, first target, you had a very harsh sell-off. It pulled back and then it pushed up to the top of the zone. So I do expect that we're going to see some selling pressure on SUNW that probably brings it back down lower to 1130, because that's just what should happen. And then maybe we see some consolidation that later breaks SUNW up closer to that $15 price target. Now, before I go, you've learned a lot in this video, and you might be thinking, Connor, this all sounds crazy, blah, 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 blah. But what I want you to see is that this generally happens on almost every single stock. What I mean by that is a lot of these stocks always have a price zone they're trying to get to. They'll first get there, as you see here with SUNW. They will sell off same day. Then later over the night or the next day, they'll gap up and run to the top of the zone, hitting the higher price target, and then the open will sell down. And I have 3 examples to show you of this just recently, or 2, I believe. The first one being Clove, okay? When Clove had bounced, recently, it had a price target from the 1450. Sorry, I had to sneeze. So on on Clove here, you can see that the market had ran all the way up to this price, rejected overnight, pushed up to 1425 and rejected. Now, if we go look at this actual charting, you will see that there is a red line for resistance right above it here. And then there was resistance here. So if I change the time frame, so you have your 4-hour resistance there, and these changed a little bit from the last week when we first did this, and then you had your other red line in there. So I'm trying to get there. Okay, so you can see how we have these 2 red lines, right? So you have this red line here and this red line here. So if we go back and just kind of look at the past maybe 5 days of trading, all right, these lines have adjusted a little bit. The other day, this red line was down here, and the other day, this red line was like closer. So you can see the market went up, resisted, came up the following day, and then finally sold down. And that is a very similar formation that we were seeing here on SUNW, where we have hit the resistance yesterday. Now we've gapped up, and now we're kind of hitting it again. So hopefully we can just break right through on SUNW, but if we can't, we should expect a little bit of selling and or consolidation here. But to put it lastly, the expected price target for SUNW is back to $15 overall. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button, notification bell, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're always posting more videos, and we always do a morning live stream at 8:30 in the morning every single day, reviewing all these stocks and the ones that you guys want us to follow. So make sure you tune in. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.